Hello everyone and welcome to today's edition of Talking Reds. We are back. It is Mo, Stewart and Rob Gutmann. We didn't do it last week, so I think every 2 weeks is probably just about enough time for us to kind of get our bearings together. Although, full disclosure, you had no idea this was happening, did you?
No idea. Neil told me, but I think we were drunk at the time, so I had no idea. But I got my act together, didn't I, Mo?
I mean, that's what you're best at. You're best at pulling something out of the fire. When
1-0 down, I'm your man.
Perhaps even 5-2 down.
5-2
which
down.
brings us to, obviously, we're going to have to talk about Liverpool's game in the Bernabeu tonight against Real Madrid. What our thoughts are about the chances of a win, what our thoughts are about what the team's going to be, and can we just get out there without hiding? All of those things are going to be on the topic. We're going to talk some transfer tattle. We're going to have a little insert from the team talk for you as well. But, Rob, top of the shop, Real Madrid.
Yeah.
They're very good at the European footballs, as they proved at Anfield.
Yeah.
And we had an uphill task going to this game. But the news had dropped pretty much in the last 24 hours. The fact that Jordan Henderson and Stefan Bajcetic aren't going to be available kind of feels to me like it kills any kind of faint optimism that there was knocking around. How do you feel?
No, I don't think it matters. I mean, as Jurgen says, 1% or something. So was it now 0.99%? It's still a very small percent. And if you want to be deluded and believe there's magic in the air and we can turn it around, then it's got 2019 vibes where we were below full strength going into the Barcelona deficit situation. Also, all due respect to the fantastic season Stefan Bajcetic has had, if we're at the stage where we're cry-arsing about an 18-year-old boy not being available to us, if someone said at the beginning of the season, you're going to be cry-arsing because you might go out in the last 16 because an 18-year-old kid's not available, I'd have gone, who, what? I wouldn't even know which 18-year-old they were talking about. And that's no disrespect to Bajcetic, and it is a testimony to his season that we are cry-arsing about it. But I don't think it makes the biggest difference in the world, because the things that will make the biggest difference is that we have to, any person in a red shirt, I was checking, we all play in red, any person in a red shirt has to have the game of their careers tonight.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a given. I mean, for me personally, it makes a bit of a difference because I think that both of them probably would have started the game.
It does make a difference, of course it does.
But I think in terms of what we can see from Liverpool, in terms of the lineup, in terms of their tactics, it does kind of throw up a bit of a conundrum because there's almost like a plan A and a plan B.
Yeah.
There's a plan 1 and a plan 2. We don't know which is higher.
Yeah.
Or 1A and 1B, I don't know. Anyway, and that's to kind of go like for like, look at the likes of Milner, Keita, maybe even a role for Harvey Elliott. And stick with the midfield 3 and have a front 3 and then 2 attackers to come on and change the game late. Or try to go a little bit more attacking, double pivot, throw four forwards on them, as we did in the second half against Bournemouth, even though I didn't necessarily go that well. Do you think that this now gives Klopp a chance to do the latter when he was considering the former, or do you think it doesn't make a difference?
It did. I think the first thing that came to a lot of people's minds was, who the fuck are we going to play in midfield? We were down with Thiago out. We were down to 3 lads we sort of trusted in midfield, right? So down to 1, you kind of think we need less midfielders on the pitch, full stop. So I think everyone's instinct moved towards the 4-2-4 kind of option. Yeah. But once you take a deep breath on that one, you struggle to recall the great performances in the Klopp era with 4-2-4, 4-2-3-1, or whatever you want to call it. And it feels wild as well when you're going into the Wolves' lair, and the Wolf has a 5-2 lead on you and just pick you off. You have no defensive solidity at all. I know there's a way of playing defensively with 4 forwards, and I wouldn't rule it out. But once I'd calmed down from that, I thought, Milner and Keita?
Well, I mean,
Naby owes us one against Madrid, doesn't he? Fuck's sake.
He does. And I do feel like, personally, if we were playing 4 forwards or 3 forwards, I'd like to see him play, because I do think of the rest of the guys, if you're going to play a double pivot, I'd say I have him doing that job ahead of anyone else apart from Fab. But I think if you're looking at playing 4 forwards, if one of them's Firmino then you are still kind of halfway housing it a bit. But I'm like you. I probably would still play 3 forwards and still have the ability to bring 2 off the bench. But I would potentially be starting with Firmino. I would maybe look at having 3 midfielders.
Regardless.
Yeah, have 3 midfielders. Hopefully, Keita, Fabinho, and either Milner or Elliott, depending upon how you want to go. And then you have Firmino playing deeper. And then you have Nunes and Salah as split strikers. Then you've got Cody Gakpo and Diogo Jota to throw at them late in the game if we still need a goal here. I mean, we are very much moving deck chairs on the Titanic here. But
Yeah.
I feel like as much as we want to go into this game and say it's a free hit and we can do what we like, there is an element where it's like, we don't want to get hammered. And
Yeah.
I feel like the only real extra damage that can be done from this fixture is a hammer.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feared that a bit more after the United game, I suppose, because I thought we had something to protect, which was a run. Probably the first run we were really enjoying this season, with 4 wins out of 5 in the league. But that was all predicated on doing Bournemouth over and going, oh, we won 5 out of 6 in the league. Look at us. We'll take a draw in Madrid. We know we're going out anyway. Let's just keep things ticking over. Let confidence stay intact. But Bournemouth reminded us that this is a flaky roller coaster of a season at best. So there's an argument that a Liverpool trounced 5-1 in Madrid tonight is no less likely to win or lose against Man City in 3 weeks' time. Arguably, right?
That is true. That is true. I mean,
So I'm not as fit. So if you adopt that mindset, and I'm halfway convincing myself that it's a free hit either way, you know what I mean? So it doesn't. There are no right answers here. Do you know what I mean? There are no right answers.
I see your argument, and like in a logical world, that makes sense. But I just think, considering that we've got 17 days between today and that Man City game, if we do take a hammer in, it's really
A depressing 17 days.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, can you imagine?
Well, given the very big unlikelihood then of it turning round, would you take a creditable draw or 1-0? Let's say 1-0 win now.
100%.
Deal on that. Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm not that. Most people go, no way. How could you? How could you forego the opportunity of one of the greatest comebacks in our history? Well, I'm pretty close to you because it's not going to happen. That's why you forego it. That's it. My view, actually, the more I've thought about it, I've come backwards and forwards. Should we throw the kitchen sink at them and hope the punch lands decisively, or should we play super conservatively?
Let's go to the adverts. There's sound issues.
Oh really?
Yeah, let's go to the adverts.
Sorry guys, we're having some sound issues, but we will.
Are we live?
Yes.
Oh shit!
It's literally twice we've done this, and both times you said, "Is it live?" Yes, it's live. Damn it. We're having some sound issues. Hopefully, we'll sort it out in the time it takes you to watch this little clip from an advert, or maybe even the team talk, depending on what we throw in.
Orcs.
It wasn't so much just that Real Madrid were so calm and were so methodical, and you could see that they were weathering that storm. It's just that Liverpool did look nervous, and there were gaps. And I remember speaking to someone at half-time, and quite rightly it was like, no, let's get after them and all that, and we're going to win this, and what a great start. And I was in my half-time bevy club down under block 202 in the Cop. I was sort of like, I'd take the draw now. I felt like that.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
We felt like we were losing, didn't we?
It was ominous what was coming.
Yeah.
And there's, and of course that's foresight, and then it looks like hindsight or whatever, whichever way round you want to look at it. It was just a feeling I was getting by half time, I thought. Because in that game, the clock was running dead slow. And the reason the clock's running dead slow is because you know that if one of your defenders gets his body position half wrong, it's a goal. And we play games against Man City like that. And the game seems to take 190 minutes, never mind the 90. And it was one of those nights because you're up against, well, it's European royalty, this fixture by definition. You only look at what the teams can bring. But by the say, and it's wild to even think we could navigate this. But we are Liverpool, and we are going to dare to dream. And if we start well, we're in the game. And let's just give them a game and see where it goes. Why should we give anything up? Why should we, ever?
YouTube, press the button, become a member of the Anfield Wrap from the heart of the city of Liverpool. The best way to enjoy all your Liverpool-based videos, everything you need, every single day. It is the Anfield Wrap.
And we're back, and hopefully sounding a little bit better. Thank you.
Hopefully you're sounding a little better. The fault was not mine. It was yours somehow. You tucked it in your pants in the wrong way. We said Mo put... Oh, that's not going to be better, is it?
No.
We're all good. Are we stopping again?
No.
Oh, we're good. You don't get this with Gary Lineker, do you?
Oh my goodness me. You can see why we're a team though, can't you?
You see why they pick us
Literally
week after week?
Every time that I have a problem, you pick up the slack by absolutely hammering it into me. Anyway.
Where were we?
Where were we indeed? We were talking about Liverpool's chances in the Burnabout, and I wanted to kind of talk about there was the 1% you mentioned there from Klopp, 538, which is the prediction website, which I've used quite a lot and tends to be quite good with these things, actually has us at 3%.
Yes.
But, interestingly enough, they have Frankfurt, who are 2-0 down away at Napoli, at 2%.
Interesting.
So they were thinking we're more likely to win, to beat the Real Madrid than Frankfurt are to beat Napoli. Now, part of that is because of who we are as a team.
Yeah.
And I do think there's an element here where it's like, if there was anyone else in this situation, there would be no chance, but because it's us, there's a chance. The problem is that you could say that on the other side and say, if we were playing anybody else for Real Madrid, I think we'd all be a lot more positive about our chances.
I mean, but this is the nature of unlikely comebacks. We're pricing in on top of pricing in there, I think. The reason it's unlikely is because we're playing Real Madrid, right? You know, it was unlikely when we played Barcelona, who'd beaten us 3-0, because we were playing fucking Barcelona. Do you know, it was unlikely in Istanbul because we were 3-0 down to an incredible AC Milan side. And we're 5-2 behind to an incredibly resilient Real Madrid side, right? So what I'm saying is we can't layer on top of them. They're not Real Madrid and they've been infested with the power of super aliens as well. You know, they are
Are we sure about that?
They are just very, very good and good at what they do. So that's why we're up against it. Okay. You know, if the booze on the other foot, I wouldn't be losing a minute's sleep. We'd be talking little anxieties. I mean, we had this. We went to Roma, didn't we? 5-2 to the good, weren't we? I mean, that was going away. We actually gave a good go at fucking that up.
Well, I mean, that's kind of an argument.
That was away.
That's an argument in the for column, rather than the against column, because we were at some points wobbling hard in that game. And I've looked at all of the other kind of big comebacks. So I'm sure you've all been looking at the same articles I have, where everyone's talking about the great Champions League comebacks. And most of them are irrelevant because most of them happened when the team was at home in the second leg.
Yeah.
The one exception is obviously Man United going to Paris and winning 3-1 there in the second leg after being 2-0 down. Although they were 2-0, 2 goals rather than 3 goals down, and they did rely on away goals, which we don't have. But you're right to say there has never been an unlikely comeback that's happened where no one was predicting it before the game, because that's literally the nature of unlikely comebacks.
Of course, that is the thing. You're looking for lightning to strike. It has struck in Liverpool's history. That's how we think we're the lightning striking team.
Yes.
But you're still looking for lightning to strike. You just are. As I said, let's make our ambition trying to win a football match 1-0. When we think we're on the cusp, if we're achieving that at any point tonight, then let's make our next ambition winning a football match 2-0.
Yes.
I know that's a real cliche thing, so it's the only way you can, and not just the only way the players can think about it, it's the only way we should think about it as fans, because otherwise you drive yourself mad. You don't sort of sit back in your couch, crack open the tinny, the nachos there, come on Reds, bring on the 5-2 reverse. It's just, you're setting yourself up for a stupid fall, so don't even wish for it.
No, but if we happen to be 2-0 up at half time, everyone stay calm. That's also my advice. Yes, the game's happening tonight. As you can imagine, we have got all of our Anfield Wrap guys out there in Madrid, and they will be covering it for you. There will be post-match shows with video and audio and lots more besides. So make sure you fully subscribe so you can see all of that stuff. Now, in my agenda, this was originally the point where we were going to take a little break and you were going to listen to a load of adverts, but you've kind of done that already. So let's just plow on to our next point, which is transfer time.
Yay.
Now, we did a gutter yesterday. I very much enjoyed it. I always enjoy when I get to do a gutter and I have something to bring to the table, say.
You always have something to bring to the table. That's why you're at that table, because the things you bring to that table. Because you know about footballers.
Yes, I know the first.
Not all of us on the gutter know about footballers.
Yeah, there was some. Yeah, we had some fun with João Palhinha. If you have the ability, listen to it now.
It's good.
If you don't, subscribe, get yourself some tokens and have a little listen. We spoke about lots of guys. Well, okay, we spoke about 2 guys, but in a lot of depth.
Jude,
as always.
Paulinho, who else do we talk about?
That's pretty well, we kind of mixed Mason Mount into the combo.
Yeah, we
as
did.
well.
Yeah, we
We
did.
were talking about age of midfielders, and there was a lot of talk about him. But there was someone who we kind of only talked about once the cameras were off, and that's Gavi. And both Neil and I were quite surprised that you hadn't seen the news
No.
that had broken about Gavi. So let's talk about it a little bit now. For those of you who don't know, Gavi, Barcelona young starlet superstar. The contract that he thought he'd signed in September has been adjudged to be null and void by a La Liga judge because I believe they'd passed the deadline. Essentially, what happened is that La Liga changed the rules around what you have to do to be able to register players as a club who have pulled economic levers, as we all know Barcelona have. So consequently, that meant that they weren't able or shouldn't have been able to register him.
Who's brought this case? The league?
Yes.
Not Javi. He wants the contract to stand.
Yes, he very much wants the contract to
Right,
stand.
okay.
This is
Well, being a free agent would be the worst thing to be.
Well, I think...
Well, he was, I suppose, yeah.
Oh, and this is what is kind of complicated because essentially, all of a sudden, it looks like if his contract is null and voided, he could be back on his youth team contract, which means he'd be available for free in the summer. Now, last summer, when he was still on that contract and this new agreement hadn't been signed, Liverpool and Manchester City were both very, very interested. Now, looking on, it's hard to say that there's not going to be another appeal and counter appeal, and this may not be the end of it. But if we get to the end of it, and he is available on a free transfer this summer, how much of Liverpool's mind and funds should be addressing trying to get hold of him?
I mean, there's wanting him and there's having any chance of getting him, right? The truth is, if he costs nothing, you can afford to pay him a shitload. But by the other token, that shitload could eclipse the wage that everybody else in the squad's on. And you've got another... That isn't such a problem for the likes of... Well, I was going to say Real Madrid, but he's not likely to go there because of the Barca thing. But City, it wouldn't be an obstacle to. And also, Liverpool's status in world football at the moment is not very high. So the chance of attracting Javi at the moment, I think if our name's getting linked, maybe it suits us because maybe it's some sort of leverage in the fight for Bellingham. I don't know. Well, I just don't think there's anything in this at all.
I'm a little bit more optimistic than you. I don't think someone as young as Gavi in particular would be put off by the idea of 1 year out of the Champions League, and I do think that we'd have a strong argument to say that whoever does finish fourth, if it's not us, if it's Newcastle, if it's Spurs, if it's Brighton, we can say with the players that we're bringing in this summer, i.e. you and him, then we will be much better than them, and this will be a 1 year up, and you've got plenty of years in your career. Personally, I do think...
There is Chelsea to consider, and their money. Yeah. I know. Just playing devil's avocado.
Yeah, and to be honest, they probably would, because they're still trying to sign Frankie de Jong, so they probably are still trying to bring in midfielders. So they would throw their hat into the ring. I think the Man City point, though, is interesting. I think it's the most likely in terms of if he's not going to be a Barca, he's going to be a City.
Spanish, Pep has first dibs.
But if Man City end up buying Gavi, then maybe that does leave us a path clear to Jude. So...
yeah.
Maybe we could be celebrating even if we don't end up signing Gavi.
I mean, Barcelona can find a way back here, though, as well. It's not like he's defo leaving Barcelona. Where there's a will, there's a way. They'll find their way back. And he's going to want to play for Barcelona. Youth team product. He's probably a boy of Barca fan, etc., etc. They're going to find a way.
Yes, and that's still the most likely option. I think this is one of those stories whereby we are kind of talking about it with the knowledge it's probably not going to be that way, but because he's such a good player, and could potentially be so transformative to whatever team he signs, I think it would be negligent not to at least mention it a little bit.
Yeah, because, we're doing cartwheels if it happens, so yeah. Links to Mbappe, links to Javi, all these sort of things, I'm up for them.
Now, there was one other thing that we wanted to touch on before we go away. There was some Champions League football last night. I'm not sure. Oh, well, I know for a fact that you didn't watch it, Rob. I did.
I followed it via the medium of Twitter.
And I have to say, Porto v Inter was one of the most entertaining 0-0s. No, obviously, that's not the game you were all watching. Man City, and particularly Erling Haaland, scored a lot of goals against RB Leipzig. And lots of people were eulogising over the wondrousness of him, looking at his goals record and talking about how fantastic he is and how he's beaten this person by this age and yada yada yada.
You talked me through every single goal and convinced me it's the worst, the worst 5-goal haul that history has ever seen. You should virtually be embarrassed.
What I said was, it
Go
was
on.
the easiest 5 goals anyone's ever scored. Now, that's not to say that in 2 of the goals in particular, I do think were down to very good forward play, being the one where he hassled the goalkeeper into the mistake and then he followed in De Bruyne's shot. I do think the one where he's on the line and the defender just smashes it at him, he's still got to be in a good position. But the penalty has been debated, will be debated. He took it well. Obviously, we can't take penalties for granted at the moment. But the 4th and 5th goals, when the goalkeeper is palming it straight to him and all he's got to do is swing his foot at it and go in. Like, obviously, I get him celebrating. I don't want to feel like this is sour grapes here. But context matters a lot. And I do think that in the same way how you don't get a 7-0 victory in a vacuum and it doesn't mean you're going to get that every week, I think that a lot of people are eulogising this 5-goal haul as if it's an achievement of epic proportions, when the reality is it's a good striker, knowing the striking role, being in the right place at the right time, and an opponent basically crumbling.
Yossi Benayoun got a hat-trick in an 8-0 Champions League win against Besiktas about 12 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that. Occasionally the Champions League, look, we can't decry Erling Haaland.
I mean, we can a little bit.
We can. We're having a very good go at this. Well done, Erling. Congratulations.
Yes, and obviously Manchester City will still be a live problem in the Champions League this season. And
Not for us. Sorry.
No,
We're
we should probably talk about the chances, because it is still, I think, the thing that I fear the most is them actually winning it. And with every year that goes by,
I'd deal on a Madrid trophy right fucking now.
I mean, we are horrible pragmatists. But yeah, I probably would too. Do you think, though, that Haaland's and having someone who can come in and just score 5 goals in a game, however they're scored, is going to be the thing that puts them over the edge?
That finally wins them the competition. That's the thing. That's why they invested in him, didn't they? They've always been looking for the X factor, despite dominating the English game. Really, the X factor that takes them over the line in Europe. Is he? The weird thing about Haaland is when it goes right with him, and he does plenty of times, it looks like that's a great idea all along. But when things go wrong for City, and it's been a strange old season for them in a way.
Yeah.
It may end up not being a strange old season, but it's had its ups and downs. He's looked part of the problem at times, which is a mad thing to say for a fellow who scored that many goals. Let's hope that he continues to be a problem for them.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Problem.
yes, problem as problems go. It's the kind of problem that everyone would love to have.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because you look at the number of goals and you just think, well, how can that be a bad thing? But the reality is that he scored, 5 hat-tricks now? So he's scoring goals in clumps. If he was scoring 1 or 2 goals in literally every single game, then I think it would be harder to say that there's any issue there, because he's literally turning up every week and doing the job. But if it's, I wouldn't call it feast or famine, because he's still not going long droughts of games without scoring, but it's not quite as reliable. It's more of a, when he's on, it's unstoppable, as it was a little bit. But come on, Leipzig, you got to do better than that, man.
Yeah, shite.
So
Darwin got 4 against them pre-season, didn't he?
he did.
He did.
So yeah,
See, it's not that hard.
it's not that hard. We were going to touch a little bit on the fact that Pep Guardiola was still not happy about that, because he missed out on he lost out on his idol, Julia Roberts, going to Manchester United. Are we going to talk about that? Do you think we can get away with it without any lawyers being involved?
Sure.
It's a bit mad, isn't it?
It's funny. It's definitely. It's funny that he got triggered about. So hang on, what did she? She came to Manchester for the first time in her life, supposedly.
Apparently.
And
this is a while ago as
she
well.
decided to go to Old Trafford to pay homage.
And he's saying that because of that, it proves that nothing that he does at City is ever going to be as good at United, because it was when they were good and United were terrible, and she still chose them.
But he did answer his own question in a roundabout way. He was positing, why would she go to Man United, who've won fuck all in recent years, when I've won all this shit, and I love her, is what he said, and she still goes to United. Well, Pep, the reason is because no one loves City. It's a loveless project, mate. That's it. Julia doesn't see any romance in it, and she loves romance. We all love romance.
Hey, It's what the whole world rolls around. Apparently not with Man City though.
No.
But it just goes that sometimes even scoring 5 goals doesn't give you everything. I think that's probably a good place.
Doesn't give you
to end it.
love.
Hopefully, well, if Liverpool score 5 goals tonight, it might give us plenty, but we're probably not going to see it. So enjoy the game as much as you can. Let's all hope that Liverpool don't get battered and we can continue on to play the rest of the season and maybe even get that win at Man City. Before we go, we will remind you of the US tour that's coming. Tickets, a few tickets still available. If you are around, please try and buy one. For now, that's enough from me and Rob. We'll see you again soon.